chaos when they're angry. But is it becoming a bit of a scene?
Yeah, there are a lot of people here, and a lot of
Double bukaye single है
wearing stickers so that people know
सब्जी वाला
that
बुकाया
they are actually election observers. They've got these bright green ones. There's no glass. That might have been a COVID thing, but yep, it's all kind of opened here. I don't know if you could maybe take a look around. We've got, there's lots and lots of tables. We're at a large center, and it looks like there's like hundreds of people here. I mean, I'll be honest, half of us are probably media, but there are a lot of election workers and a lot of observers that are watching. We were told that earlier this evening when, the recount, when they were deliberating that, there was a representative from the Democrats and the Republicans here. They want to be transparent. They obviously don't want a repeat of what happened during the last election. But, as I mentioned, it was a close one, and they're trying to, keep everything open so that they do not have a repeat.
Right. Let civility prevail. All right, Ifalusa, thanks very much. So, Aisha, just curious, are you talking with people on the ground in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, any of those blue wall states?
So Pennsylvania in particular, we are going back and forth and biting our nails, but there's some interesting things trends that are happening if you look at the counties in Pennsylvania. So there are places that Donald Trump actually beat Biden that now you're seeing Kamala really come up and do well in, and then the reverse is also happening. So I'll give you an example of that. Right in dead smack in the center of the state, which is pretty rural, it's called Center County. That was a place that Biden actually won. Now it looks like Trump happens to be up there. That is quite significant. But then you look outside of, well, first of all, Philadelphia, not in. Only 11% of the count is in there. So that's going to certainly change what we're seeing in this map over time. But then if you look outside of Philly, you look at York County, that's kind of going back and forth. So York County is one that Donald Trump won. You see Kamala has been up. Now York is kind of flipping. Now
what kind of place is York, if I may? Like, describe it.
York certainly has a rural feel to it. But from what I understand, that there are people who have moved and kind of it's part of it is a lot of people who have left Philly that are moving a little further out, but York is known to be a conservative, more rural area, kind of a little further outside of Philadelphia. But the fact that you're even seeing that in play, I think that some of what's interesting to me to watch is how the shifting demographics post-COVID that we saw from urban areas, people leaving and then kind of moving up and out. This is a case in New York as well, where there are some real key swing districts. You see urbanites that have left the city and moved an hour, 90 minutes outside of the city and are now shifting some of that electorate in some of these rural, known to be rural areas, and how that's going to play out as well. So, Pennsylvania, it's interesting because a lot of work has been done there. You see that the Harris campaign invested really heavily
in
trying to.
The money that's
there's so much money that's gone there, and you also have a really popular governor there in Josh Shapiro, very popular all across the state. And so how this is playing out is really interesting right now, and you can see those pockets of where the investment has happened on both sides.
Well, given the popularity of Josh Shapiro, has there been a conversation amongst Harris operatives that maybe he should have been the VP?
I don't know that that's the case. And look, I'll say this, and this is not a popular thing to say, but I do believe that Josh Shapiro has a very long career as one of the rising stars of the Democratic Party, and Josh Shapiro knows it. And there's a reason why from the jump, Josh Shapiro wasn't jumping up and down saying, I'm going to run in here. He just got that job as governor. He literally just got that job. And he said, I'm going to actually do the job that I just got. There will be time for me to consider other things later on.
The long game. So there's the long game, and then there's the short game of betting. And I know that while we're looking at some of these numbers, you're also looking at the betting odds, right?
Yeah, and in the last 45 minutes, they have shot way up to between 85 and 90% in all of the different various markets, polymarket, whatnot. And I raise that because the way I look at the map right now and the likelihood of a Trump victory right now, at least in the public imagination, if he doesn't win tonight or tomorrow, there's going to be a whole lot of people that think something went very wrong, and that's what I'm afraid of. We want a clean result. We hope that the margin is big enough on either side but where it is right now, the public believes he's going to win.
Okay, so a couple things about that. I think everyone's heard Donald Trump's too big to rig, make it too big to rig. I think that's a line that both campaigns would want to hang on to.
Yeah.
But in every election cycle, we have this conversation with people about hang on to your hats about the first results you see because they change through the night. Has that not landed for people, do you think?
To some extent, but a lot of those rules have been changed where that red mirage doesn't exactly work that way anymore. I just think, hopefully he keeps cool about this and, doesn't go out there and proclaim victory tonight prematurely or anything and waits and sees what plays out. But it's something to keep an eye on as we go through the night.
Can I ask, what is a clean victory for Donald Trump? Like, what is something where he would say, this is decisive for Harris, and I can sit back and accept that? Like, what
he talked about it today.
Yeah.
When he voted, and he said, if it's a clean victory, it's a clean victory. How he defines that, I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I think it would probably have to be a pretty resounding defeat with no obvious court challenges, although there were not a lot of obvious ones last time. But he did have a point that they suppressed the laptop and.
Donald Trump has never, ever claimed defeat around anything, even as a guy who has filed bankruptcy 6 times, right, who has been held liable for sexual assault. Like, he has never claimed defeat. So there isn't a margin.
As a convicted felon.
Right, he's a convicted felon,
right.
Like, so there isn't, the thing that makes me fearful, and in fact, people are texting me right now saying, oh my God, I'm scared to death. What if Donald Trump wins? Not simply because of the politics of it, because of the fear of the violence in the streets around it, especially for those of us who are Black and brown people in the United States, right? We watched January 6th. We know that there's an incitement of violence because you don't get your way. And Donald Trump has spent the entire election convincing people that the game is rigged before anybody even started voting, right? His entire, brouhaha has been, oh, well, they're cheating, right? They're cheating. They're going to cheat. We're going to have lawyers there to make sure that they're not cheating. And so that is something I, appreciate the way that you say that there are a lot of people who believe that he's going to win. And when we talk about the betting odds and the belief, that's the thing that makes those of us who actually broker in like real facts and data concerned, because people's attitudes and opinions about what they believe that are based in nothing other than someone's attitude and lies about something being rigged that aren't really true end up having like really fatal consequences for a lot of minorities in the United States, because it incites people to take their attitudes about what they think should have been and go out and act upon them even though they're not reality. And so I would hope that if in fact this night ends and it's unclear what's going on, that the former president would say it's still unclear about what's going on, we're waiting for everybody to finish counting, and not actually incite something other than what the numbers are telling us.
Okay, well, let's give everyone the benefit of the doubt that it just becomes this gloriously mundane process of one. I'd like to head to Michigan if we can. Susan Ormiston is in Detroit with a guest, I gather, Susan.
Yeah, Adrian, it's really too close to call here, of course. Only about 20% of the vote is in Michigan, and it's very, very tight, as was expected. But, I've been canvassing the room a little bit, and I think the nerves are starting to rise a bit. Claire Meunier is our guest. She's been a campaigner for Kamala Harris's team, trying to encourage people from out of state to come in and help campaign. And Claire, how are you feeling right now, be honest?
I am starting to feel a little bit nervous. When I walked in here earlier today, I was feeling super excited. The prospect of having the first woman president is just kind of amazing to me, and I was thrilled about that. Over the last 30 minutes or so, I will say I've been seeing some of the stuff on TV. I'm getting some texts from friends, and starting to feel a little bit anxious, hoping that is not granted or warranted.
What's making you feel anxious?
Just, I guess, getting texts from friends. They're a little nervous. It seems like races are becoming closer and closer. In Michigan, obviously, I've been working here and don't like what I'm seeing. To me, it feels like this should be a slam dunk. I knew it was going to be close, but was optimistic that we were going to really pull ahead. So I am a little worried, if I'm being honest.
And if Kamala Harris does not pull it off?
Honestly, I don't really even have words for that right now. I will be devastated. I probably will cry. It will be really hard for me to understand, honestly. I really hope that does not become the reality, and I'm still crossing my fingers and optimistic here, but I don't really want to consider that as a possibility right now, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, I will let you go and not put you through more misery, but thank you so much for talking to me. It is, of course, still early. These battleground states are still very much in play, but I think Claire's opinion is being reflected around the room that they're just not as sure as they were earlier in the evening that these states are going to, in fact, stay with the Democrats.
All right, Susan Ormiston in Detroit. Yeah, this is the momentum conversation. Have a look at the results board at the bottom of your screen. 201 Electoral College votes for Donald Trump, 91 for Kamala Harris. Ian, you have some more information about the blue wall. Is it still a blue wall?
Yeah, well, I mean, it keeps going back and forth. It depends on kind of which 5-minute increment you're looking at it. Before I show you results, I want you to consider this. As we look at two paths for victory, one for Trump, right now it looks like if he wins Pennsylvania, he will win the White House. For Kamala Harris, it looks like she needs all 3 of the states in the blue wall. So let's start looking at what's happening right now in the blue wall, beginning with Michigan. This has been going back and forth. You can see 24% of the votes counted there, and Donald Trump currently in the lead. So that would be bad news for Kamala Harris. Let's move on now to Wisconsin, a state we expected to be very close, just over half of the votes counted there, and Donald Trump in a lead that, again, this would be concerning for Kamala Harris. Still lots of votes to count, but still significant that there's that much of a lead at this point. Now the big one, Pennsylvania. If Trump were to win in Pennsylvania, along with North Carolina and Georgia, he goes to the White House. He has a relatively big lead. It's about 110,000 votes with almost 60% of the votes counted. Now, here's the asterisk right now. NBC reporting that there are 1.9 million early votes. And of those early votes, 56% of the 1.9 million are from registered Democrats, 33% from Republicans. We expect to see the data from those early votes at around midnight Eastern time, so that may change the numbers in Pennsylvania a lot. But right now, Donald Trump is looking pretty good when it comes to his path to the White House. Kamala Harris is, definitely not leading in the blue wall states that she needs right now. I want to show you 2 more results before we go. Arizona, 49.6%, 50% of the vote counted, and it is a dead heat there. Donald Trump actually 24 vote lead. So percentages exactly the same to 1/10 of a percentage point, but a tiny lead. Do votes count? They certainly count if you're in Arizona. And remember the optimism for Democrats about Iowa earlier in the evening and that poll that came out on the weekend. Well, Donald Trump is picking up the Electoral College votes in Iowa. There was some question about whether that would happen. Also in Kansas, another state that Kamala Harris was doing surprisingly well in, we can tell you now that Donald Trump will take all 6 Electoral College votes. But again, the blue wall is critical to Kamala Harris. Pennsylvania is critical to Donald Trump. The one prediction we've been absolutely right about, it's really close.
I knew that's where you were going to go. And you're right. That explains Iowa and Kansas for Donald Trump, explains the bump you're seeing in the results bar at the bottom of the screen there. Paul.
I want to pick up on something that Kevin was talking about earlier, this notion that if Trump declares victory and the numbers change later, that people will be demonstrably angry and upset about that. And by implication, that means millions of Americans have no faith in the electoral system that is in their country, because it's a perfectly normal thing for, notably in Pennsylvania, for votes to be counted much later. Or is it just that they want to take, sort of to Aisha's point, that they just want to believe that guy for misguided reasons?
No, my read on it is that he's not he's not. We're not there yet in Pennsylvania. It's only at 61% of the vote in. She's not going to concede with that many votes still out there, obviously. So the question would be whether or not we get closer and closer to that, and it looks almost inevitable. And she's not conceding, but he declares victory anyway. It starts getting messy. It'd be stupid for him to do it now. I don't think he will. I think he'll probably give a speech tonight. I think he'll say it's looking really good. If he can stay on discipline, which is always tough for him, just we're going to keep counting the votes. Had a lot of great support out there. It's looking really optimistic for us. But everybody just hang in there and wait for the results to come in. We'll see them in the next 12 to 24 hours.
But I mean, even going back to 2020, and after all the fraud this, fraud that, and then there was never any evidence, really, at all, and yet people seem still willing to take his word, theoretically, that the fix was in. That's the part that I don't understand in a system that would seem to be working.
Well, yeah, his court challenges didn't go anywhere. The argument J.D. Vance has made subsequently is that, okay, well, it might not have been rigged at the ballot box, but they did suppress a laptop that would have changed votes. We know that. They did change voting rules all over the place.
It's not true. Let's not spread misinformation on air. That's not true.
It's absolutely true.
It's not true.
We have public polling for it.
That's not true, which is why there's been no litigation around it and no one's been held liable for that. There's been absolutely no.
I'm talking about a media narrative story. I'm not talking about actually rigging of an election. That's the J.D. Vance argument. I'm just giving you J.D. Vance's argument. But yeah, you're right. It does undermine, it does create long-term problems for the Republican Party to not believe in the vote. The voting system that has been set up. Some of the states have taken action. Georgia's fixed up, their system a bit. What they all need to do, and I don't know why they don't do this, is just call Jeb Bush and have him come in and do what he did to Florida, and just do that in your state.
Let's talk about exactly the question that you're asking is one that I've been catching a lot of heat for answering on air, and we've been talking about this in the last week or two. You're talking about the propaganda campaign and the playbook of Trump. This is not new. This is not surprising. This is directly out of Hitler's playbook. This is out of an autocrat playbook. This is a way to, the things that Trump has done masterfully, frankly, is to get the entire, to get a big part of the population to believe that the game is rigged and to sow distrust in public institutions and the free press. That is a tried and true playbook that we have seen time and time before that has resulted in really disastrous things for society. And that is what's working. And so it's actually quite simple. When you tell a big enough lie over and over and over, people are going to believe it. Even when folks around him like Rudy Giuliani and others have literally been found liable for telling those lies that weren't true. The public still believes it, and the whole goal was to erode trust in our public institutions, and it's working. If anything, that's what fake news. Donald Trump has done that really well. Can't argue with that, right? Okay. And that's it.
Okay, I just want to interrupt for a second. Two things. 30 cases of election fraud were found completely without merit. Sometimes you hear the argument from some Republicans that, the cases didn't go anywhere because there wasn't standing. But at least 30 cases were heard and were thrown out because of a lack of evidence. I think that's been adjudicated, that there wasn't.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. There was no rigging at the ballot box that they were alleging. Rudy Giuliani was just wrong about that stuff.
Yeah, it's just so hard to get it out of people's head, right? That narrative sticks.
But there is a broad, going back to the story, a broad erosion in people's belief in democracy around the world. This is not just in the United States. This is happening in this country as well. And there is an attempt to sort of point at institutions and create distrust. And some of that, for sure, that shouldn't be, but some of that is because of how people are feeling about their place in their country right now. And that is what Donald Trump is playing to and preying on and all the other things you want to say. But that is a real sentiment people have. That is a real feeling. And if he wins tonight, it will be because Kamala Harris was not able to position herself as the great uniter and as the person who could be the president for all people, because not all people believed her.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's certainly been the story of elections around this year of elections,
Yes.
right? More elections
100%.
2024 than almost any other year. And it's been, I mean, Rob Russo, the former CBC Ottawa bureau chief, used to say that elections are largely about throw the bums out. And it's been a very bad
For incumbency.
year for incumbency.
Yeah.
Who's the incumbent in this one, though, right? Like, who's the incumbent? Because
Well, I mean,
they both can claim to be the change maker and both can claim to, you know.
Can I say one last thing on this?
Of course.
If he does go on to win, as her position in the Senate Pro Tem, she's going to have to certify the election.
Yes.
Is she going to do that?
There's no indication that she
Of course she will. I mean,
No, I'm
and
just
these are
saying-
just questions that get raised again. There's never been a Democrat who has suggested that they are not going to follow the rule of law. So even saying those kind of things,
I'm saying she should come
are
out in her
creating a
speech.
narrative
If we're getting ahead of
that's
ourselves,
just not
but she should
true.
come
always follow the rule of law. She will bring people in that disagree with her. There's never been a question.
And I think that would be a
Republicans are
terrific
only the
part.
ones
saying get ahead of it.
It's not truthful.
Be good
It's
for
nothing to
unity.
get ahead of.
But
You made that up.
nobody's
You
saying
made
that.
that up.
Nobody thinks that. So you know
Right.
what I mean? I don't know what you're getting ahead of.
Right.
There's
You're
one
making things
party
up.
that stormed the Capitol, incited people to storm the
Which is really
Capitol,
bad. Yeah.
and the other party didn't.
I hope the next 2 months are clean.
Listen, let's get through tonight, if I may. And that starts with the conversation, another one about momentum. So, which means we have to go to West Palm Beach, Florida, where Chris Reyes is now. Chris?
Hey, Adrian, you know what I just started seeing from this crowd is they started to wave their hands up in the air as the results have been coming in positively for Donald Trump. And I tell you that because, you know, we've been here for a few hours now, and I'm just going to say that this is not a dancing crowd. There's no DJ here, but that doesn't mean that they're not happy, optimistic, and hopeful. They're just showing it in other ways. In fact, I think this is more of a merch crowd, which is why you see the sea of red hats. And the loudest cheer that we heard was when Iowa was called for Donald Trump. And, you know, Ian mentioned that poll that came out in recent days that showed that Kamala Harris took a leap ahead of Donald Trump. And that had some people questioning that state that Trump took in the last election. And so when Iowa was called for Donald Trump, there was a big cheer here. And the other thing I'll mention is that, you know, this crowd throughout the night, they haven't really had much reason to be nervous or anxious throughout the night as they're showing results from the different channels from the U.S. networks on the two big screens right next to the podium. Donald Trump has been in the lead and has had a sizable lead throughout the night. So, you know, from the vantage point of this crowd, their candidate is very much winning. And you can hear, okay, this might be a sign, Adrian, because they turned up the music real loud, and on those two big screens, you are seeing Donald Trump dancing. And Mar-a-Lago, where he's watching the results come in, that's just about a 10-minute drive from here, maybe even 5 minutes, with the kind of detail that he has. So he can very quickly scoot over here if he's feeling pretty good about these results. And so now this crowd is starting to dance, Adrian. This is the first time that we've seen dancing. Their eyes are trained to that screen, and they are waiting for their candidate to come. I mean, they're waiting for Donald Trump to hit that podium and to start talking about these results. And you know what you really see all around, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Chris, just so you know, we have our eye on the motorcade. It hasn't gone anywhere yet. But that YMCA has been burned into people's brains now as Donald Trump's walk-on music is quite a thing. Anyway, carry on.
Well, yeah, and like I said, it says a lot that I'm actually starting to see dancing for the first time, and they're showing that that video montage of Donald Trump. I'm not going to try to do it, that dance that Donald Trump does. So this is a crowd that's not only very hopeful about the results, I think they're getting ready to welcome their candidate. And, you know, I told you about the hats that everybody is wearing with a 45 and 47 on the side, which says a lot about the kind of epic comeback that this crowd is waiting for. You know, Donald Trump wins this, he would be only the second president in this country to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. So he would be the 45th and the 47th president of this country. I'm going to stop talking for just a second and let Sean, my teammate, kind of focus on the crowd here, because there's a lot of movement happening just in the last few minutes. Okay, so it just got quiet a little bit, and that YMCA that was blasting on the speakers has now been turned off. So, Adrian, I mean, we just wait and see.
Absolutely.
If Donald Trump is going to take that podium.
I promise you, Chris, that if we see any indication that the motorcade is on the move, we'll let you know. But just so people know, if it's on the move, let's hope it's not to claim victory early, because this isn't over yet. This has not yet been determined. Some states are still too close to call, even though they are currently leaning in a particular direction. And people don't soon forget that it was in 2020 that when Donald Trump claimed victory early, and that contributed to a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the accusations that something was up with that election, when in fact nothing was up with that election. He lost. I'm going to go ahead now. Chris, thanks very much. Hang in there. We're going to head to Ian with more conversations about that path to victory. It's getting narrow for certainly Kamala Harris. What's it looking like for Donald Trump?
Well, he has multiple paths to victory right now. So they begin with 2 southern swing states that he's been doing really well in all evening. Georgia, he maintains the lead with 90% now of the vote counted. North Carolina, he's also been leading throughout the evening, and he continues to lead with 85% of the vote counted. So if he were to hold Georgia and North Carolina, then all he has to do is win Pennsylvania to go to the White House. He maintains the lead in Pennsylvania, but as I mentioned a few minutes ago, still a third of the votes to be counted, and we may see some changes there, though it is a pretty solid lead for Donald Trump there. Here's the thing. Even if he loses Pennsylvania, here are another couple possible paths. If he wins the other 2 so-called blue wall states, which right now are not all blue, that would give him victory. So let's take a look at the second of the 3 blue wall states, Michigan.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, is this Bonnie?
Hi
there. My name is Brian with Wisconsin Dads. Just want to make sure you've got a plan to vote today. Oh, okay. Sounds great. Wonderful. Me too. Me too. That is exactly what we're out here for. No, that's exactly right. Me too. And it's very exciting, though. I think it's do well. Absolutely. Yeah.
America, Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Donald Trump, and the polls are now closed from coast to coast. America decides right now.
Are we ready to do this? We've been waiting for 4 years for this. 4 years.
Vice President Harris.
This has not been about a fight that is against something. This is about a fight that is for something.
Former President Trump.
We're going to defeat Kamala Harris, and we're going to make America great again.
CBS News, America Decides, Election 2024. Now reporting, Norah O'Donnell.
Welcome back to CBS News Election Night headquarters here in New York. And we're coming on the air with some breaking news in